Hi everyone. Last year was the first time I heard about this corset diet, and despite many people asking me what I thought about it, I've sort of tried to avoid this topic up until now because I just feel so conflicted about this. At first I was sort of intrigued because, this was designed by a doctor. I mean, I've had a few doctors quietly buy corsets from me in the past, but here's one that's actually willing to publicly condone the use of corsets and monitor his patient's health. So that was pretty exciting. But then I noticed that they weren't actually real corsets at all. They were sort of stretchy, rubbery shapewear, and I was a bit disappointed. But then they started selling technically real corsets, but from a supplier that I had a negative experience with. That's their prerogative, but once again I was kind of disappointed. But there's one fundamental detail that doesn't sit well with me, and that is they choose to call it a diet. I mean, yeah, I know it gets people's attention, it has a certain punch to it, but I hate for people to think that corseting is some sort of like get thin quick kind of fad. Nevertheless, the corset diet claims that they have a 100% success rate and they guarantee a weight loss of at least 2 pounds a week or your money back. But when I think of a diet, I typically think of limiting certain foods, eliminating other foods completely, moving around the time of day that you eat your meals or the frequency that you have your meals, and sometimes limiting the volume of food that you eat. So from a glance, it seems that this corset diet is only limiting your food intake by the volume, basically by constricting the amount of food that can enter your stomach at any one time. But so here's the big thing, a corset is not a diet. A corset is a garment, and I have never ever believed or mentioned on this channel that it is a way to replace any sort of proper nutrition or exercise. A corset is a piece of clothing. I mean, do you only wear running shoes when you're running marathons? Just because you own a pair of running shoes doesn't mean that you're going to be successful at running. That's just not true. I mean, you still have to put effort into learning how to run for long distances. A good pair of running shoes can aid you better than running a marathon in a pair of heels, but the shoes aren't an exercise routine in and of themselves. That idea is a little bit flawed. And moreover, if you really like running shoes, you can wear them all the time. You can wear them every day if you want because you like them. You don't necessarily have to wear running shoes only when you're running. So for some people, of course, it can aid in weight loss in some ways. So the argument is not totally invalid, but it is a little bit flawed. So this video is designed to outline both the pros and cons, or the case for or against the corset diet. So I guess I'll start with the pros, or the case for, first. So Anne Grogan from Romantasy, who I've mentioned many times on this channel already, she's shown for years that it's not unusual to lose weight when you're waist training. She says that a corset can act like an external gastric band almost by putting pressure on your stomach so it's not able to expand as much during a meal. I mean, have you ever heard of a food baby where you eat so much that your abdomen sort of sticks out and you have to undo the button of your jeans, or better yet, like around Thanksgiving you just wear your drawstring pants? You can't really do that in a corset. So a lot of people, they eat heavy foods, they eat large portions, they eat way too quickly. Some have binge issues where they come home in the evening and they eat basically from 6 to 10 p.m. or whenever they're ready to go to bed. For many people, their stomachs might have stretched to accommodate a very large capacity. Some people might have issues with their leptin and their ghrelin signals. So basically, if you have leptin insensitivity, your body can't recognize when you're full, or maybe you can't turn off that ghrelin signal so you remain hungry all the time. How a corset may combat this is by increasing the intra-abdominal pressure, and some of the first organs to respond to this extra pressure are the stomach and intestines. Because, for lack of a better term, they're sort of hollow and membranous, with most of the volume in them being taken up by air and food and waste. So those contents, they pass through and they get pushed out the other end, obviously. Once those contents are gone, the stomach and intestines are pretty easily able to flatten and get smaller in volume. So by wearing a corset and decreasing the capacity that your stomach can hold, it may help you feel faster, and if you eat too much, then it becomes uncomfortable faster. So if you consistently wear a corset with your meals, particularly your largest meal of the day, which in North America is generally dinner, then you'll quickly learn that it's not quite as easy to binge in a corset as if you were wearing stretchy pants. So while it's not the same for everyone, some people who have those malfunctioning hunger signals over time, it is possible to eventually recondition and reset your appetite, learning to take smaller portions and also feeling satisfied with those smaller portions. Another way that a corset may help, which might be a little bit more controversial, is that a corset may allow you to see your figure the way that you may have wanted to. So a lot of people, they give up on their diets or their health regimes because they don't see their figure transforming fast enough. But a corset is able to basically give you an instant hourglass figure and sometimes allow you to instantaneously fit into some skirts with a smaller waistband that maybe you couldn't fit into before. The corset smooths out any bumps under a dress, and they make your clothing fit differently, and for some people, yeah, that helps make you feel fabulous and boost your self-confidence. And perhaps for some people, a shocking sudden change in your self-image, it might help to kickstart a new fitness program or motivate you to choose higher quality foods because you know that you deserve to treat your body well. You deserve to give your body clean fuel and make it strong. But please don't misinterpret what I'm saying, because I'm not saying that all people who eat junk food and have a sedentary lifestyle have low confidence. And I'm not saying that people who carry a little bit more weight than the average have low self-confidence either. I'm saying that for those people who don't feel 100% happy with their figure or their health, and they feel as if they could treat their body better, but they don't know how to start, or they have problems with motivation when they cannot see results fast enough, then for those people, seeing a sudden change in their figure by the use of a corset and seeing how their clothes fit differently, that might serve as inspiration for them to go further with their healthy habits. But now let's discuss the case against the corset diet. I know that a lot of people view dieting and weight loss as a matter of chemistry, or more specifically the law of thermodynamics. You know, calories in, calories out, fuel in, energy out. Energy density within certain foods, and which foods pretty much tip that scale. So I know a lot of people don't believe in the concept of calories, but just bear with me here. For many people, this is the oversimplified relationship between diet and weight loss that they believe in. But now let's look at the simplified view of corseting as it relates to diet and weight loss. It's now a matter of physics instead of chemistry. So how much volume of food can you fit comfortably in your body at one time while your stomach capacity is reduced by the corset? So let's say that when you're wearing a corset, your stomach can only accommodate 2 cups of food, or climb at that stage, as opposed to, say, 5 or 6 cups that it might be able to accommodate without the corset. But you see where this doesn't work for everyone, because it completely removes the factor of the quality of food you're eating. You're not looking at nutritional density at all. Basically, if you eat very calorie-dense foods like cheese or deep-fried foods, or nutritionally deprived foods like candy and sugar, instead of a cup of nutritionally dense foods like steamed cruciferous vegetables or squash or eggs, then yeah, you might not lose weight. So if you can only hold 2 cups of food in your stomach, and you choose 2 cups of lard over 2 cups of pumpkin or green beans or berries, then don't be surprised if the corset diet doesn't work. And on the other hand, in a different scenario, if you already eat healthy to begin with and you maintain those healthy habits after you take on corseting, then you also might not see a drop in weight. Also, if you're the type to not eat meals and you just graze for 16 hours throughout the day, keeping your stomach volume small at any given time, but your day's total quantity of food is pretty high while its quality of food is still pretty low overall, then the corset diet may not work for you either. And if you do eat large meals and you get sick of wearing the corset and take it off halfway through your meal just so you can put more food in your stomach, then the corset diet is probably not going to work for you. And not all people are the same either. There will always be those types of people who are constantly able to shovel in that garbage food with or without a corset and still not experience any undesirable effects, whether how they feel or how their body responds. And while there are some people whose appetites are curbed by wearing a corset like me, I've actually talked to some individuals who feel more hungry when they're wearing a corset. So as with any other diet in the world, results will of course vary with the effectiveness of this corset diet as well. So I'd like to talk a little bit about my personal experience. In the past, I've talked about stomach hunger versus head hunger, or basically physical hunger and the need for fuel versus food addiction or eating out of boredom or stress or emotional eating. I have found that a corset has helped with my stomach hunger, but there is still a small element of willpower when it comes to overcoming any sort of psychological addiction to refined sugar and junk food. I still have to choose foods that are of higher nutritional quality. I still have to choose to not remove the corset when the corset makes my body feel full, but my mind is telling me that it's not satiated. I know that in my experience, for me personally, certain foods don't agree with me very well when I'm corseted, such as carbonated drinks, dairy like ice cream and cheesecake, or very heavy and fried, dense foods, a lot of heavier meats, some artificial sweeteners, especially those sugar alcohols that can cause a lot of bloating, and sometimes just those empty calorie foods like those the processed sugar, the refined sugar. Those things tend to give me a stomach ache. More so when I'm corseted than when I'm not corseted. So technically, what do I do when I eat something that doesn't agree with me? Well, over time, I'm conditioned to avoid it. So when I'm corseted, I notice that I have a tendency to choose lighter foods, higher quality foods. I have a lot of smoothies and protein shakes, salad, grilled vegetables, overripe fruits, leaner meats. You know, that's just what works for me. Obviously, depending on your lifestyle and your beliefs and your health and what feels good in your stomach, you might opt for different foods. But 99% of the time, the foods that are gentle on my stomach and that make me feel good are the foods that are pretty much more healthful. So in my experience, when I'm actively waist training, as I was through late 2012 to about June of 2013, I noticed that I do tend to drop weight. When I realized that I didn't like my silhouette at 20 inches and I stopped waist training, then my weight and my natural waist size both went up. But even though I have personally experienced this correlation, corsets have never been about weight for me to begin with. As I mentioned in my video, Why Don't I Just Lose Weight, which I'll link right up there, I mean, people have told me that I'm lazy for strapping on a corset and that I'm trying to fool people into thinking that I'm skinnier than I really am. But for me, having this sort of temporary vintage hourglass figure when I'm wearing a corset, it's more about creating curves and having my clothing hang a certain way, not about looking skinny. For me, corsets have been about the waist, not the weight. So when I was contacted by a producer from the Dr. Oz show a couple of months ago, they asked me how much weight I lost by corseting and also how long I had kept it off for. But I wasn't gonna lie. I mean, before I started corseting, I was a university student. I was living off $5 a week for food. I ate a lot of lentils and carrots and apples for like weeks or months at a time. And when I didn't buy a bus pass, I had to walk 45 minutes to class. Uphill, in the snow, with a 20-pound backpack. I mean, you get the drill. But now, several years later, I have a cushy job when I sit most of the time. I drive most places. I'm not eating the same. I'm not getting the same amount of exercise by walking to class every day. I doubt I have the same metabolism I did when in my late teens and early 20s. So if you want to look at that whole 4 or 5 year span between the time that I started corseting on a regular basis and today, then yeah, it's pretty easy to see that I have gained weight. And if I wanted to lose that weight, then I know what I would need to do. And for me, yes, personally, it would include corsets in my regimen, but that would not by any means be the only tool that I use. Once again, I have never ever said that corsets were designed to be a replacement for proper diet and exercise. In fact, I said that if you start corseting on a regular basis, then that's a good reason to start or increase your exercises, especially your core resistance training. And I've also mentioned that when you start corseting, it's good to reflect on what you eat and drink and be a little bit more mindful of it to make your waist training as comfortable and smooth as possible, because there may be foods that make you uncomfortable when you're wearing a corset compared to when you're not. So with what I know about weight and health these days, for me personally, I'd probably be happy with a shift in composition as opposed to flat out loss in weight. That being, say, instead of wanting to lose a flat 30 pounds, maybe it would be healthier for me to try for 20 pounds of fat loss, but 10 pounds gained in muscle. So the scale may only register 10 pounds lost overall, but the composition of my body would be completely different. So let's sort of recap this whole video. The first point that I want to make is weight is not everything, and your weight only does not give you an accurate reflection of your health or your body image. Also, focusing on your fitness and health is more important than simply your weight. Also, corsets are not a diet. They are a garment, which may or may not be used as an aid for whatever goals that you have, but they are not a substitute for good nutrition or fitness. And also, waist training is not an easy short-term solution that you just stay on for a couple of weeks and then you never wear again. It does not work as a short-term fad. So this pretty much concludes my views on the corset diet, good and bad. I would love to hear your views as well, so please feel free to leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you have experienced any weight loss, whether intentionally or non-intentionally, when you're wearing your corset over time. And I will see you guys after the weekend for another video. Bye.